You're tuned into That's Life, where we celebrate the beauty, the chaos, and the wonder of real life. Sometimes it makes you laugh, sometimes it makes you cry, but it always makes you feel. Settle in. We're just getting started. Today, Veronica arrived at school unusually early. More precisely, she wasn't just brought, but practically delivered. After another nightly quarrel with her father, her mother hadn't slept a wink, and to free up her day sooner for long conversations with a friend where she could complain about her husband to her heart's content, she drove her daughter to the school doors long before the bell. A familiar scenario. Having gone up to the second floor, Veronica headed towards her classroom. By the window, off to the side, stood an unfamiliar girl in dark clothes. Oh, right. This must be the new girl. Exactly. Ronnie had seen her yesterday briefly when she was talking to the teacher. Well, she looks decent. Worth taking a closer look. A spot had just opened up in their group after Kira left, and now they needed another friend. Veronica decided to immediately assess the new girl's potential, understand how she behaved, and decide if she was suitable for the role. Ronnie walked up to the window and said, "Hi, I'm Veronica. You must be the new girl? I saw you yesterday. What's your name?" The girl flinched and seemed to shrink upon hearing the address, but noticing Veronica's open smile, she timidly smiled back. "Hi. Yes, I'm new. My name is Camilla." Her voice was quiet, but surprisingly melodious. Veronica thought that this name would fit perfectly into their circle, and they would teach her to speak louder. "Where are you from? Did you move from another city? Or did your parents get divorced? Why did you switch here?" Veronica asked without hesitation. Camilla replied awkwardly, "No, we're not from another city. My parents aren't divorced. My father isn't alive. I live with my mom. I switched because this school is closer to home. It's more convenient." Veronica nodded understandingly. "Oh, I see. That's convenient, of course. I live far away. I have to commute every day. But I usually get driven. Sometimes by mom, sometimes by dad. Depends on whether they're fighting or not. Anything can happen. Does your mom have a car?" Camilla looked away. "No, mom doesn't have a driver's license." "Wow, she should really get one. You can't get by without a car these days. Let her learn, and then she can teach you. I'm going to get my license right when I turn 18. Dad has already promised to buy me a car as soon as I get it. Can't wait." Camilla glanced sideways at Veronica and smiled slightly. "Yes, driving is great. I want to learn too." Veronica adjusted her hair. "What iPhone do you have? A 12 or a 13? I hope it's not a 13. I only have a 12. I want to be the first in the class with a 13. "I don't have a phone. I lost it. Mom hasn't bought a new one yet," Camilla mumbled awkwardly. "Oh, great. I hope she doesn't buy one this week, because Dad promised to buy me a 13 on Saturday, and then you can get one." They stood and chatted, mostly Veronica talking, while Camilla listened with a sort of admiration. Ronnie noticed this. Perfect. The new girl was quite suitable for the role of a new friend. Soon, other classmates started arriving. Veronica took Camilla under her wing, introducing her to everyone. The classmates welcomed the new girl warmly. During the first lesson, Veronica sat Camilla next to her. The day went wonderfully. Camilla quickly settled in and made friends with many. She was happy to have found so many new acquaintances, and everyone treated her so well. Ronnie invited Camilla to a slumber party on Saturday, a sort of initiation into their group of friends. It turned out that Camilla was an excellent artist, and Ethan, one of the boys, promised to bring her some special pencils his father had brought from abroad. He clearly wanted to impress her and win her attention with an expensive gift. They're so cool, you'll see for yourself. I have 2 boxes. I'll give you one. If you like them, you can order more. Your mom can do it. I'll tell you how later. My dad explained it to me. Ethan hovered around Camilla all day. The girl was over the moon that everything was working out so well. She had been very afraid of switching to a new school, especially this one, which was quite prestigious and where many children from wealthy families studied. For about a month, everything went smoothly. The classmates treated the new girl well. They didn't ask much about her family. About her mother, Camilla said that she owned a cleaning company, but in another city. No one was surprised. Many parents' businesses were not only in other cities, but also abroad. But then something happened that fundamentally changed the classmates' attitude towards Camilla. This occurred exactly a month and a half after she arrived. It was the 7th lesson, and they were let out 10 minutes early. Camilla hurried to the restroom. Veronica and her friends said they would come later. They needed to discuss with the teacher the possibility of improving their bad grades on the recent test. It was Friday, and the school was almost empty. When Camilla dropped her backpack and entered the area with the stalls, she bumped into the cleaner at the door. Startled, the thin woman dropped an empty bucket. Camilla cried out and crouched down to pick up the fallen rags. The woman looked worn out. Deep wrinkles crossed her forehead. But these were not wrinkles of old age. The woman was still young, only 35. These were the marks of endured sorrows and hard labor. She had to work many low-paying jobs to support herself, her daughter, and her sick, disabled mother. This was Camilla's mom, and she worked as a cleaner at this school. Oh, sweetie. They asked me to come in earlier today. The assembly hall needs to be prepared for the event. Camilla frowned and hissed angrily. I asked you not to call me sweetie here. You promised. You said you'd pretend we don't know each other. Please don't let this happen again. Mom? Is that your mom? Your mom is a cleaner? A voice from behind rang out. Camilla turned pale. Slowly turning around, she saw Veronica and her friends. The girl stared at Camilla with wide eyes and then looked her mother up and down with contempt and disgust, noting every detail of her wretched appearance. Camilla hoped that this fact wouldn't affect their relationships, as she had already made friends with everyone. But her hopes were dashed when she met Veronica's gaze. In her eyes, Camilla saw such revulsion and anger that she immediately understood. It was over. These girls would no longer be friends with her. Silence fell. The bell could be heard ringing. Veronica stirred and backed away, signaling her friends. Okay, we have to go. I have a party tomorrow, and my friends, Adeline and Diana, and I need to get ready. Veronica emphasized the words, my friends, Adeline and Diana, clearly indicating that Camilla was no longer part of their circle. It was all over. The girls hurried out of the restroom, giggling and whispering. Camilla knew they were talking about her. The girl stood there, her shoulders slumped powerlessly. Camilla had so badly wanted to fit in at this school. A faint hope remained that Veronica was just offended. That evening, Camilla would call her from her old phone, which she didn't bring to school, and ask her not to tell anyone. Maybe Veronica would agree to keep her shameful secret, and no one else would find out. Even if she was no longer Ronnie's friend, at least the other classmates would treat her the same. Camilla turned to her mother and yelled angrily, "I warned you! I told you, if the same thing happened as at the other school, I don't know what I'll do to you. You ruined everything again. How I hate you. You've ruined my whole life. Everything was starting so well here. And again, it's like you're doing it all on purpose." The woman clasped her hands in front of her. "But I didn't mean to, Camilla. Not on purpose. I love you more than life itself. Please don't say such terrible things." Camilla grabbed her bag and ran out, leaving her mother in the restroom. Camilla called Veronica all evening, but she didn't answer. And then a message came. Veronica wrote that the party was still on and they were expecting Camilla tomorrow at the appointed time. And Camilla was over the moon. It meant they had forgiven her lie. It meant they would be friends. It meant things weren't as bad as they seemed. The next day, Camilla arrived at Veronica's party on time. She had prepared an entire speech to convince everyone that the fact her mother was a cleaner meant nothing. She wanted to tell her story, that her father was rich and loved her mom, wanted to marry her, and then Camilla would have been the daughter of wealthy parents. But a tragedy occurred. Her father and his parents died in an accident. An uncle took all the property, and her mother was left with nothing. No fiancé, no husband, no education, no money, only a sick mother and a future daughter. The girls should understand that Camilla was not to blame for their poverty and way of life. But one of the bitterest disappointments in her life awaited her. If she had known what would happen, she would never have gone to that party. When Veronica let her in, Camilla saw that all their classmates had gathered in the house. She immediately felt that something was wrong. They shouldn't have been there after all. Only friends were invited. Everyone was looking at Camilla and silent. Camilla turned pale. Her mouth went dry. She couldn't utter a single word. She wanted to run, but her legs wouldn't obey. And then Veronica's voice rang out. "Dear classmates, I want to introduce our new girl to you again. Our acquaintance began with a lie, and today I want to correct that. Today, only the truth will be told." Camilla looked at Veronica and shook her head almost imperceptibly, her pleading gaze full of hope. But Veronica looked at her mockingly and announced loudly, looking her directly in the eyes, "Meet Camilla, the daughter of our school's floor scrubber, the cleaner, the queen of toilets, the cleaning company businesswoman. Welcome to our humble party, in my humble dwelling, O toilet princess, daughter of the wretched and dirty ragamuffin." Everyone laughed loudly and together, pointed fingers at her, and whispered. Everyone, absolutely everyone, looked at her with disgust. Veronica had managed to turn everyone against her. Camilla backed away. She couldn't stand being there anymore. She turned to leave quickly before the tears came and heard behind her, "Yes, go on. Get out of here. You don't belong here. You have no right to relax. and have fun in decent homes where respectable people gather. You should just clean toilets like your mother. Although, if you want, you can clean my toilet. I'll even pay you. Veronica was shouting this. The classmates heard and laughed at Camilla, many chiming in. Camilla ran out of the house. She ran for about 5 minutes, and only when she was far enough away did she slow down and then stopped completely in the middle of the street. There were no tears, although she had wanted to sob at Veronica's. Now the tears had gone somewhere deep inside. Something had changed in Camilla. She suddenly realized how pathetic the people who surrounded her were. Nothing mattered to them except money. They were so insignificant that compared to them, her mother was simply an angel, a queen, the richest woman in the world. And this woman had managed to raise a strong spirit in Camilla, and Camilla would no longer chase after these pathetic creatures, seek their friendship and approval, or try to become one of them. She would become herself and achieve great success. She would no longer beg her mother to transfer her to another school. She was no longer afraid. Now she was on her own, and no hurtful word or action would reach its target because Camilla was no longer vulnerable. Now she would go home, apologize to her mother, and tell her how much she loved her, and then she would go back to this school and pay no attention to anything. She was sure she would manage, because her heart was now protected by a stone wall that no one could break through or cause pain. 15 years passed, another class reunion anniversary. This year, the former 11th A class gathered almost in full. Their class teacher had been seriously ill in the autumn. Many thought she wouldn't survive, but she recovered, and the students decided to give her a surprise, to gather together. Life is so unpredictable. You need to cherish every moment. They gathered at the school in their old classroom. All grown men and women now. They approached each other, greeted, hugged, laughed, recalling their youth. Mrs. Eleanor kept wiping away tears, rejoicing at each of her beloved students. In half an hour, they were supposed to go to a restaurant. And suddenly, an incredibly beautiful and slender young woman entered the classroom. She was dressed luxuriously, but without ostentation, which immediately caught the eye. Veronica, standing nearby, greedily examined the expensive jewelry on her hands and her fur coat that, my God, it cost a fortune. Who is this? She must have mistaken the door. She certainly hadn't studied in their class, and she looked a couple of years younger. But then Veronica met her gaze and froze. There was something painfully familiar about it. And then the young woman, looking intently at Veronica, walked towards her with an elegant gait. The click of the heels of her expensive suede boots echoed clearly through the classroom in the complete silence. Everyone watched the stranger attentively, and the young woman, coming right up to Veronica, said quietly but confidently, "Hello, Veronica. Don't you recognize me?" Veronica recognized that voice instantly. It was the same as it had been 15 years ago. It was Camilla, the daughter of the school cleaner. How was this possible? "Camilla?" Veronica mumbled uncertainly and fell silent, not knowing what to add. Camilla smiled. "Yes, you recognize me. I haven't changed at all, have I?" Veronica didn't reply. Camilla turned away from her and walked over to the teacher. Mrs. Eleanor hugged the young woman, and they talked for about 5 minutes. All this time, Ethan couldn't take his eyes off Camilla. He remembered how he had demanded his gift back, his pencils, when he found out who her mother was. He hadn't wanted to do it, as he was in love, but he had given in to the pressure from his classmates. If he had defended Camilla then, he would have become an outcast himself. He had been a coward. When Camilla finished talking with Mrs. Eleanor, several classmates approached her. Cautiously, afraid of saying something wrong, but driven by curiosity, they started asking questions. They learned that Camilla lived in America, married to a very wealthy American for 8 years now. She herself was not struggling either. She had become a successful and famous designer. She had even been shown on television, but under her husband's last name. She worked with very famous people, attended prestigious events, and was acquainted with Hollywood stars. Her mother had been living with her in America for a long time. Camilla had bought her a house, and the woman had happily remarried. Everyone was in shock. How was this possible? How had she reached such heights? After all, she was just a cleaner's daughter. She had grown up in poverty. No one in the entire class had anything close to what she had now, not even those whose parents were very rich. Many, on the contrary, hadn't achieved much success living ordinary lives. And Camilla had achieved everything herself from scratch and even moved her mother over. Some asked how she had managed it, but Camilla didn't go into detail. She only said, "I worked very hard and paid no attention to anyone who tried to humiliate me. However, you already know that from school. That's when I stopped being ashamed of my mother. When I accepted myself and my background, I realized I could achieve anything I wanted, and so it happened. There's no secret." When everyone was getting ready to go to the restaurant, Ethan walked up to Camilla and quietly said, "Come with us. I've already called a taxi." But Camilla shook her head. "No, I can't, even if I wanted to. I have a flight in an hour. It's time for the airport. The car is already waiting by the school. I have to go." Ethan walked Camilla to the car. The driver waited patiently. When she approached, he opened the back door. All the classmates watched this scene, and many were openly envious. But Camilla paid no attention to anyone. She extended her hand to Ethan, and he shook it. "Will I ever see you again?" he asked hopefully. Camilla smiled sadly and shook her head. "No, probably not. Nothing connects me to this city. I just flew in today on impulse. Now I realize it's not worth doing again. Goodbye." Camilla was about to get into the car. For a second, she hesitated and turned back to Ethan. "Ethan, thank you for the pencils. Even though you took them back later, they played a significant role in my life. Thank you for everything, even for the complete indifference. I was once in love with you. And you know, I'm glad we never ended up together. I wouldn't be as happy as I am now. Goodbye." And Camilla got into the car, leaving Ethan. He watched after her for a long time, and even when the car disappeared around the bend, he was still looking in that direction. He thought about the girl he had once loved and who, in 40 minutes, had left such a deep mark on his heart.